Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are joining us from around the world. Thank you for tuning in to Web3 Warriors. This is episode 15. We're really excited to get into it. Today, we're going to be talking about sustainability in Web3 and the amazing opportunities that we actually have ahead of us, being able to take full advantage of the blockchain and Web3 to actually make an impact on the environment, a positive change on the environment. So just a quick introduction to the show. Welcome. I'm David Krome. I go by Krome in the metaverse, and this is Web3 Warriors, where we talk about all of the amazing potential for creators in this Web3 space, and really just the unlocking of the potential for peer-to-peer transactions around the world, and really what that means, as a creator, but also just as an innovator, as somebody who builds, somebody who wants to help the planet really and push things in the right direction. So before we go to our guests today, which we have Ravin Dave and Andre Miripolsky with us here from the SharkTales project, who are really building something really cool and impressive. And Andre is coming to us with, I think, 50 plus years of amazing art history that he's going to share a bit with us. So I look forward to getting into that and hearing how their project is helping the planet and doing a lot of interesting things on the sustainability front. So before we throw to them, I just wanted to speak directly to some of the misinformation that we often hear in the Web3 and blockchain space, and specifically the critics who often see blockchain as something that is environmentally damaging or more of a negative side for the environment. The most common criticism you hear is Bitcoin mining and the fact that Bitcoin mining does use a significant amount of energy, but the part you don't necessarily hear as much about is the fact that that energy consumption and the pressure from the public to make sure that that energy is being consumed in the greenest way possible is actually pushing a lot of innovation when it comes to alternative energy, when it comes to finding ways to basically create this energy from, in some cases, energy that's just being wasted, whether it's, a solar panel farm or a wind farm or basically anywhere where there's excess energy right now, it's basically being wasted, and they're finding ways to use that excess energy to mine Bitcoin, for example. And there's also scenarios where, like in El Salvador, where they're actually using natural resources like volcanoes, or in some cases there's hydro energy as well, where they're using those type of alternative energy sources to basically create energy for the mines and then be able to mine Bitcoin, which then helps the economy and helps society more broadly. So the main point I wanted to kind of hit on this episode today is the fact that economic innovation, which I don't think anybody can deny, blockchain is an economic innovation. It's important to realize that economic innovation and environmental innovation can go hand in hand, and I think that's where the blockchain and the Web3 potential is really enormous. And for example, we've seen, even just on this show, we've talked to Kofi, who is in Ghana and doing some interesting work on the social front, really, more so than the environmental sustainability, but the social sustainability front, and selling his masks from where he sits in Ghana and using that revenue to actually build schools and help his environment, his community. And we've also spoken to Ebro, who has a really cool kind of t-shirt company, which is not directly Web3, but is integrating Web3. And it's basically for every t-shirt you buy, they're planting a tree in Freetown in Sierra Leone. And they want to connect the tree information to your NFT so you can actually follow the growth of that tree. And so that's another example of really being able to take that peer-to-peer connection, the fact that we're able to make these sales directly internationally around the world, but then actually attach that NFT, that token, to a real-world action that's happening, and being able to track that real-world action and to see that your funds are not just buying cool art, but they're actually making a difference in the world, and be able to tangibly track that difference because the data is all in your token on the blockchain. And so with that in mind, that's very similar to what our friends here, Ravin and Andre, are doing with the SharkTales project, which is basically attaching your NFT, which is a very cool work of art done by Andre Miripolsky, who's got a really amazing history that he's going to share with us. So you get that artwork, but the actual NFT also is attached to data that is related to the shark, and the shark's sharks graze in certain areas of the ocean where there are these. I'll let them speak to it more better than I probably could. But basically, there's plants and foliage that are helping the environment. And so the sharks are actually protecting that foliage and making sure that the ecosystem continues to grow. And if we can continue to grow these green spaces, ideally, we're helping the environment by, taking more of that carbon out of the environment. But without further ado, maybe I'll let Andre and Ravin speak to this a little bit more directly, as I know they can. So as we always do with our guests, I want to first allow them to kind of introduce themselves and share with us a little bit about how they got to Web3 and blockchain, and where they're coming from, whether it's artists or innovators. So maybe we'll start with Andre. I'm really humbled to have you here, Andre. I looked through your catalog. We've got some of your artwork scrolling across the screen right now. Thank you, Andre, for joining us. How are you doing today? And share a little bit about your background and what brought you to Web3 and the blockchain.
Thank you, Dave. I'm doing really great today on this beautiful Southern California morning. It's actually very, very beautiful here, and I have to say too, that's one of the reasons that major reasons that I first came to and settled in Los Angeles in Southern California was the weather. So I'm very glad that weather thing, is still going. Because I went to high school, all the way through high school in Seoul, Korea, for 4 years. And I think it's on the same parallel as like Chicago or something. So I felt that after 4 years of 4 winters in Korea, life was too short. If I had a chance to live in warm weather, that was the way to go.
No
so
doubt.
That's a little bit of my intro thing. But I am a multimedia artist. I have been painting all my life since I was 8. I did my first oil paintings. My father was an artist as well, so that's how things were available to me. And I'm somebody. I feel that I'm somebody. I put my work and my energy, because I feel it's all about energy. At the end of the day, everything is about energy, and I've put my energy into many different kinds of platforms. And so, from costumes to sets to paintings to drawings to videos, all kinds of things, and leading up the roads, all leading up to the NFT world, and further developing my shark characters, which I have been developing for over 20 years. And I felt that last year, and I was looking around, and we're going to this a Bored Ape hamburger thing today, later in Long Beach.
Oh, okay.
To celebrate. It's only the first annual of the Bored Ape. The Bored Ape first came out just a year ago.
Crazy to think about, right? Yeah, I saw last week there were a bunch of 1 year ago I bought my ape and now I'm blah blah blah. And it was like, right. All these lucky guys, eh? Yeah, exactly. I saw a lot of the commemoration on Twitter.
Wow. Yeah. So anyway, so I felt I've been developing this character, and I was looking around and just generally seeing the apes everywhere, but lots of animal, apes and lizards and frogs, and I thought, well, why not a shark? And I happen to live in this what's billed as the largest creative community in the country, called the Brewery in the downtown Los Angeles area. Nice. And it was originally the original brewery site in Los Angeles, going back to the mid 1800s. But at any rate, I live and work here, and so does Ravin Dave. And we were both working together on a project at the time last year, and 2 and 2 came together, and it added up to 4, and we got started out of that situation on bringing the apes to the world through the metaverse.
Sharks.
Blockchain. What did I say?
Apes.
Oh, I'm sorry. God, is that a Freudian slip?
We got you.
I don't know. Sorry. I'm glad you called me on that one. So, but we like apes. We like apes. And anyway, so I just felt that this could be an interesting situation, and then we pretty much got a commission to do a 10,000 generative project with the sharks, and that showed me a whole another world of how the technology, the people power, the machine power, how it all works together to create, thousands and thousands and thousands of unique images that, as I found out at the end of the day, again, I found out that they were truly unique images. I still
Right.
quite get over it.
And how did you find, like, have you had to create all of these a range of assets for your SharkTales project then? And has it been
Well,
pretty taxing?
I think we had something like 170 or some 75, 175 assets or something.
Different traits?
And was it? Oh,
Yeah.
traits. I'm sorry, traits.
No, that's
Right?
good.
Traits. And so when I did the original drawings, I did 15 original drawings, and I just thought, kind of psychically or whatever, that this is kind of like cartoon animation thing. So I felt that it was important to keep the traits, the different layers, as separate as possible, so that when they were reproduced up to 9,000, I was thinking like 9,999 times, they would get all gamished and all confused and everything, which it turned out to be, I was incredibly wrong on that.
There's some
Because they
method.
really, yeah, because Ravin tells me that they could do 1 million of them or something, and they would still keep their own individuality. So I was kind of really blown away by that whole process. So it's been a very stark learning curve for me, because it's been a stark learning curve, but better
No, it's
late
really
than
cool.
never.
Well, before we get to Ravin, I just wanted to hit on something you talked about. So you had these shark characters kind of in your repertoire for what, like 20 plus years, you're saying? And so with the way that animals are kind of being used in this PFP NFT space, you saw potential to kind of use this character and bring them into the NFT space. And was it always going to have kind of an environmental impact angle, or were you kind of just saying like, hey, I have this character and how can I, bring it into the NFT space in an impactful way?
Well, honestly, that was, and I give complete credit to Ravin about that, because that was his initial idea,
Cool.
because of the animalness of it, to reach out to to some kind of an ocean conservation organization, and I think we were just very, very lucky that really the second reach out was the one that connected with us, and it was just a series of being at the right place at the right time with the right goods, like a silver platter, really. And
Nice.
so that whole thing came together within a couple of days. It all went down like really, really fast, because the people, all the parties were predisposed, looking. We didn't know that, but they were actually looking, as it turned out, for something like this.
Very
And
cool.
so it's really just the right place at the right time.
Yeah, I feel
We-
like
With the right art.
Well, with the right
Right
art.
art. I
Well,
think the art is very, very important role. And I think that's what we're starting to realize is the power of art, to be able to open people's minds up, to then present to them something that's pretty logical. And once they get it, it makes sense.
right.
no doubt. Yeah, no, it's really cool that I think those kind of synchronicities we see a lot of in the Web3 space, right? Like, hey, I've got this character, I've been working on this amazing visual asset, and then, it has a environmental relevance, and then you just happen to get connected with the right kind of organization looking for that kind of art.
I'm a big believer in messaging. I've always really, really liked messaging. In fact, one of my most famous things that I've done in my career actually was this image here.
Oh, cool.
Fear no art.
Fear no
That slogan, Fear no art. That's been used for the government, against the government. It's been quite a history with those three words. You can Google "fear no art." You'll see it's a tremendous amount of information there. But I've always been into messaging, and it's a fantastic opportunity to to take these kind of cartoony, animated kind of characters and to attach them and to a real world conservation organization to do that really does do good. And so that's a major plus for me, as a person, as a citizen, of being able to do something that I feel is having some kind of practical benefit, as well as the art part, which so with the message, I believe in using art to help to sell a particular message. It doesn't always have to have a words, have a message, but I think in this situation, since we are using the sharks to spread the word of ocean conservation and how important it is to be involved and to help that, and to hopefully, kind of entertain people while they're getting the message, I think is kind of important.
Yeah, I really wonder if there is a more pressing, important topic than ocean conservation right now, really. When you look at the state of our oceans, like, is there anything more important than that?
No.
Honestly, it's quite jarring when you actually take the time to take a look at it and see what we're up against, So kudos to you. That's amazing. And it's really cool how your artwork that, spans so many decades is landing on the blockchain with such an impact and with such a clear kind of intention around it, and the vision that you guys have. So really amazing. And I look forward to hearing more.
I'm a total OG, man.
I love it. You're a total OG. And I love how you got the art going behind you. You got the art on your shirt. You're rocking that. Does he have a name, by the way? Does the shark have a name, the original character?
That's a really, really good question, but no, not really.
Okay.
And I don't know if that was subconscious on my part to let the audience come in and make up a name, because the shark would be in different situations. And I mean, when we did the 10,000 sharks, I'd start off with these shark characters. They're all great white sharks. And I like the negativity and without the color, and just making the statement with their smile and the sun. And they also had sunglasses, which then became to represent my Southern California or LA sharks.
Love it.
And then when I did the 10,000, we added lots of color and pattern design inside the body of the shark, which worked, I think, extremely well. But
Beautiful.
because the whole, we wanted to be inclusive, and the white shark was maybe looking a little too white. I don't know.
Yeah,
So when it came to
diversity.
to the NFTs, you did add more variety, you're saying? Like, there are different colors?
There's 10 different, 15 different sharks.
Okay.
That range from rainbow sharks to alien green sharks to gray sharks, and all sorts of types.
Yeah, here maybe I'll bring up your OpenSea page to show that. Yeah, no doubt, lots of different types of sharks going down there. Very cool.
Right. And I think and that's where too we started to really kind of lean in and start to bring forth conservation Easter eggs, elements, ideas, and driven by Beneath the Waves. We actually had a good meeting with them, and they brought forth a bunch of just different characteristics that fit within the research and everything that they're doing. And so we were able to incorporate the cameras that you see on some of the sharks, right? Those are inspired by their underwater photography. And one of the things that makes Beneath the Waves really, really unique and interesting is their approach. Their approach as a NGO, and the way that they use content for storytelling. And so led by Dr. Austin Gallagher, and I think at some point in the future too, we should definitely have them on board as well, and we come back and circle around to do like a progress check.
Yeah, no, I'm down for that, for sure.
It'd be great to get the science perspective, the hardcore science perspective, but so they provided, the kind of just inspiration for the traits. Like, they do a lot of work based around the Bahamas. And so in the Bahamas, you have the Exuma blues. And if you Google Exuma blues, you can see that that's like the quintessential blue-green, Caribbean pictures of the ocean. And that's between all of the little islands in the Bahama Islands.
No doubt.
So we picked up the elements of that, and then started to really get into the seagrass story and the mangroves. And that's ultimately, we picked up those elements, and when making the generative project, we had, I believe, 10 to 12 different layers. And so on the background layer, we started to incorporate different backgrounds that would be called ocean related or inspired by ocean related things. And so seagrass and mangroves were specifically two of those. And then from this project, we started to pull some of those elements forward And so as we progress and come up with different NFTs and different pieces, and even using POAPs, we're starting to interweave the elements from the original project into the new project as a way to storytell about conservation and what it is that you're seeing in the profile picture or within the piece of art. And the interesting thing to me is that a lot of these elements, right, Andre has already been working on within his style and his practice. And so over the years, he weaves these little things in and out of his. And so you start to see these little artifacts come in and out in their different, variations. And so, he has the turtles and the eel and the stingray. And in fact, stingrays and sharks are in the same family. And 11% of stingrays and sharks live in seagrass and mangroves. And so seagrass and mangroves are natural carbon recapture mechanisms, and they take the carbon out of the ocean and help put it back into the earth. And sharks naturally protect these areas or these ecosystems. And so what Beneath the Waves found by putting cameras on the sharks is the sharks would go and disappear for a couple of days. And it was like, where are the sharks going? And they were going to hang out in these mangroves and seagrass to basically spawn. And while in the time that they're there and living within these ecosystems, they were the alpha predator. So they helped prevent these ecosystems from being overgrazed by other species. And so essentially sharks, right, are naturally protecting the planet. And they've been doing this for over 400 million years, right?
No doubt.
So it's crazy to think that the planet already had a system designed to manage itself. The problem is that we're extracting too much oil and carbon out of the earth and then burning it, which turns into carbon dioxide. So the balance is off. And so there's too much carbon in the air and there's too much carbon in the water. So we need to protect these plants that naturally pull that carbon out of the water and put it back into the earth. And in order to do so, we could do that easily, right, by working with local governments and protecting those lands, right? But then also by protecting sharks. However, there's over 70 million sharks that are definned a year in this awful definning process where literally from sharks being caught in nets, where literally they just chop off their fins. Whatever's caught in the net, they just hack it off, chop off the tails, and just let the actual shark, which is a sentient creature, by the way, right? Sharks have feelings. They can feel. Yes. Great whites are warm-blooded. Some species are cold. But fact of the matter is they let these animals then die, right, without their effective, fins or tails at the bottom of the ocean, because they just sink down and die a very slow, painful death. And 70 million sharks a year are definned.
That's crazy.
And it's not only for commercial fishing, but it's also for luxury. It's also for the restaurant. Different cultures consume. And so right now there's a big push in Congress because U.S. hasn't even outlawed definning, I don't believe, and I believe Australia as well, and the Far East. So there's a big effort going on a lot of fronts because the ocean is under attack. From human activity, right? So we're killing sharks, we're expanding offshore drilling, and then plastic, right? So there's three major fronts that are all kind of compounding on top of each other. And Beneath the Waves believes that by 2050, they can help restore and reverse the trend of where the ocean is going. And so their research is predominantly focused right now on the carbon sequestration and quantifying the impact, as well as measuring the area of the seagrass in order to put into place a blue carbon program, which they'll launch in a couple of years, that'll allow companies to, for the first time, offset their carbon footprint through ocean blue carbon credits and essentially protecting the ocean bed and marine life that's within the ocean.
So this would be different from the kind of standard current carbon credits, because it would actually purchase, like, specific seagrass like plots or mangrove plots like for conservation? Is that the goal?
Yeah, so I think they've already helped preserve over 800,000 square kilometers um, in and around the uh, Bahama Islands. And they're constantly, just even the other day, I was on the phone briefly with Dr. Austin. I caught him before he was running in to speak with another government agency and another government. And so they're in between spending time in the water to measure and capture, and they take aerial satellite photography, and then they dive down and literally record and map the satellite imagery to the actual underwater seabeds in order to start to quantify the amount of space. And then when studying it, I think it was like 3 centimeters per year of sediment settles on the ocean floor. And so then they're starting to take core samples all the way down of feet to get the amount of carbon that gets essentially redeposited into the sediment every year.
Wow.
And then they're able to start to quantify the amount of carbon in order to create a carbon offset program. And so I'm doing my best. I mean, these are some of the smartest, most incredible individuals we've ever met, and the job that they're doing is just incredible. So if we could use the idea, I think came, very simply, and I have a long history in creative development. I was always the kid that I was interested in 2 things: art and sports, and music. Actually, 3 things, and they all competed with each other. So whenever I was not in class or on the sports field, I was probably in the art room or DJing or the music room. So I grew up just constantly kind of doing creative. I went to art school, and then I ended up spending 10 years in corporate on the agency side, working for big brands, creating national integrated marketing campaigns. So I've been in Web 1, Web 2, Web 3. Like, I grew up doing, like, I don't know, AOL, and we used to hack AOL and all of that stuff. And then now, it's like, okay, well, I don't want to push products. I want to do something for good. And when Andre and I met, and he had the sharks, it was just a natural, well, if we're going to be pushing sharks, then we need to be saving sharks, right? And we need to be talking ocean. And it was, like Andre said, right place at right time, with the right partners. And then, Dr. Austin Gallagher sent a message on the back channel, was like, yo, I love the sharks. Like, let's talk.
Nice.
And so
Dr. Austin is with Beneath the Waves, or?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Cool. No, that's amazing, man. You're touching on some important points. I want to give thanks to Sasha for dropping in. She was saying it's a very informative chat. She had to leave, but appreciates the input. She's going to catch the replay. Anybody else in the chat, please do, share your thoughts in the chat. We will have a random draw of anybody who takes part in the chat after the show, and we'll get you a free NFT. So if you have any questions or thoughts, suggestions, please don't be shy. Share your thoughts in the chat. But thanks, Ravin, for that breakdown. So I wanted to also say quickly on the topic of the naming that my 4-year-old son would definitely name him Sharky. So I'm just going to throw that out there.
I use that.
Absolutely.
I use that.
Cool.
Sharkified is another one.
Sharkified. There you go. Cool. So I was curious, before we get into the blockchain dynamics, because I am a little bit curious about how that carbon capturing, will relay back to your specific NFTs. But on the inspiration, for the shark, Andre, I know you said it goes back 20 years, and you're in California and being on the coast of the ocean. You spoke about the great white shark kind of being a symbol, but is there any other inspiration that kind of, like, when it first came to you, like, what was the genesis kind of reason for creating the character?
The very first shark, the inspiration or the situation that where I had to come up with some idea was I was invited to be in a group show dealing with art and electricity in New York in 2000. And so I came up with this idea. this is a lot, again, and this is very analog, but remember they used to have these light boards in restaurants and video stores and stuff. They wrote the daily menu and the title of the video or something on it.
Yeah.
And it would kind of glow. Anyway, so I tracked down a manufacturer of those things, and I got like 18 of 2x3 panels, and I made a mural out of that. They're plexiglass, frame plexiglass, and I took the plexiglass, drew behind the plexiglass, and I thought, what am I going to do in this mural? And it was in New York, and so I thought of I don't exactly the moment where the light bulb went off, but I thought of this storyboard kind of idea of these sharks coming up out of the ocean. They all have tails and fins, but as they come out of the ocean and attack New York, they start to grow feet, and their fins become kind of like arms or hands, and so they come and they take over the city. They eat up the city.
Nice.
So that was the first time that I actually did this.
That's cool. Well, I'm glad I asked. that
Sharks
wasn't
eating New
at
York.
all. It wasn't at all what I thought the answer was going to be, but that's really cool.
All right. I'm a little aggressive there, I know.
No, it's interesting. I think that's the imagination, right? You're a true artist.
Well, it's
Yes,
where they got Shark Tank from, right? Like
Yeah,
the
exactly.
concept of Shark Tank. It's yeah.
No
Yeah.
doubt. Very
And I
cool.
thought Spielberg did all right with them too. So
Right? Yeah, everyone loves sharks, They've got like a whole channel devoted to them now, right? On
Big
TV,
time,
Shark
yeah.
Week or whatever.
Shark Week,
Cool,
Shark.
cool. Well, thanks for sharing that. So yeah, Ravin, when looking at the actual NFT tokens that people own, right? So you mint your token, you get one of these really amazing Miripolsky one-of-one originals, generative shark NFTs. So what is the connection now to the plot of seagrass or mangroves that the sharks are protecting?
Yeah. So that's a great question. And we're just in the beginning of this project. I think we swam possibly into some deeper water than we were ready to swim in,
Mhm.
so to speak. And I think that's just, natural within this crazy Web3 world. And the other, I mean, mostly because it's figuring out the technology. It's figuring out literally like, what happens if one group creates a contract and then, there needs to be a changing of a guard, and how does the contract get updated? And when you start to deal with, obviously not-for-profits and like there needs to be a very clear flow of just how funds are working. And so I think it's been a bit of an experience, just trying to work through the various technical aspects, as well as like the community building aspect, right? And so I think, originally the concept started off with 3 collections. The first collection would be the Generative Collection, and that was, initially through a group called Real Items and NFTG, and they commissioned that project. And that's specifically for their community. And so you need to own one of their memberships in order to then be able to claim a shark. And part of their initial roadmap was that once they reached, I think it was like 70% of donors, they would, or collectors, they would make a large donation
Mhm.
to the cause organization. And so that was that project. And that one was good because it taught us how to make a generative project. It taught us, it gave Andre and I an opportunity to work together in a very, very intimate, collaborative, intense way. And I think that was probably for us, the indicative of if we could work together to pull that off, right? Regardless, I don't care about selling out. I care about like executing, right? Delivering the project that we were asked to deliver and essentially commissioned to deliver, and to do it in just the highest quality, right? And neither of us had ever done one of these projects before. So it was like we needed to learn it. And then fortunately, we had an amazing artist that helped out as well, Lily Muller, who's literally at the
Venice Biennale.
yeah, right. So super talented. And her and Andre have been working together for years. And so Andre literally hand drew 15 pieces. And then I scanned them all in super high res, sent them over to Lily. Lily chopped them all up and then colored them with Andre, sent them back. And then we spent about a month like color correcting every single piece to make sure that they all fit together. And, you know, if every combination, you know, it's going to be a unique one of one piece. So it could be so it is a Miripolsky. They're all signed. They all are properly traded. There's rarity and everything. And that was the goal, was to be able to execute that, right? Execute that very well. And then we have a collection called the Water Shark Collection, and that was the underlying watercolors that Andre did back in about 2012, 2013. And there's, I believe there's 13 of those. And so we dropped the first one, and then once we got through and each one had 25 additions to it. And so the idea was to then take a percentage of those, and a percentage of those would go to support Beneath the Waves and would go directly to Beneath the Waves.
Right.
However, we didn't have a tech partner to do that. And so we dropped that contract initially on the open contract on OpenSea. And then we did it on Polygon because we wanted to make it, you know, eco-friendly. But then that became a huge barrier with people buying it, because then once you buy a Polygon, it just, the process is horrible.
Right.
And it doesn't even show up in your MetaMask.
Yeah.
So then there's that, right? So that's that piece that now we've solved by moving on to Manifold, but now there's other challenges with that.
When you say
we're still working through that.
Sorry, when you're moving on to Manifold, then moving on to Ethereum with Manifold? Like a custom contract on Ethereum. So just to clarify for the listeners, Manifold.xyz is a platform that helps creators build custom smart contracts for their NFT project. It is a really nice way to go if you're looking to own your smart contract and have more flexibility, but there is a bit of a price, and you have to have a little bit of a knowledge barrier maybe, but it just takes a bit of time to learn. So I just want to clarify that for the listeners. So you're moving over to Manifold on Ethereum.
So and that's been interesting. And I think we're going to stick with it because that's allowing us to make phygital. And so then we can make a digital print with the QR code embedded and numbered on the back, signed by Andre. And then that's also tied to, right, one of the, whether it's Rarible or OpenSea or Looks Rare, right, each of the tokens that are on chain within one of the marketplaces, or it could be onto our site, directly on our site, to be able to mint it or claim it. And so we're working through that, and then on top of it, that would come from a Gnosis wallet or vault that would have Beneath the Waves, Andre, and SharkTales in there. So this way, the money gets split, authorized, and we would just split that equally between all the parties. So that there's just a clean flow.
So each party, right? So each party has their wallet, and then for every NFT that's minted, there's an automatic split to each party's wallet.
And do it equally on primary and secondary, right?
Oh yeah,
like
nice.
Just to, and that's the goal of that piece, and we're in the middle of the shift of that. And so I guess this is like public, confidential, but not really, because this is like we're in this weird place.
We're getting the alpha. Like, we're getting the alpha here.
Yeah. So we're working through those pieces, but the third collection, and again, this is like we're still ahead here because we're still working through the tech, and then not just the tech, but it's like building the community. Right, because we have 20 original oil paintings, like the one that's behind Andre,
right?
And those are
that's
huge
beautiful.
IRL, right? But then put those on chain with their digital twin NFT, and then also attach an adopted shark, so that a percentage of the purchase of the painting and the NFT, right, go to support Beneath the Waves, as well as adopting a shark, which would give the primary collector naming rights to that shark. And then as they, got data in from the shark and whatnot, a portion of that would go to on-chain, or not on-chain, but to the NFT, attached to the NFT. So because you wouldn't put that information on chain, because once it's minted. But then also you need to be careful, just also from the standpoint of like, you don't want, hunters to be buying, a painting to be able to get to
You
it.
always have to think
just,
about the nefarious side of things, right?
Yeah.
No doubt.
So I think it's, at the end of the day, right, that's the whole NFT side. But what we're in the middle of right now is actually a pivot. And, it took us a full year. I've been in this space, NFT space, for a year and a half with Andre and I in this project, almost a full year, or just over a full year now. And it's really, it's not about selling NFTs at this moment. It's more about, now we're realizing, using the power of art to open up minds, to educate about Web3, ocean conservation, and then in turn start to build a community of people that care about what it is that we're doing and want to support this project. And so that's been a significant shift that we are literally going through right now.
I like it though.
Which is why I just don't want to talk about NFTs. I'd rather talk about the technology, the potential, and then, how we're going to scale, which is looking to partner with another couple artists to start to do actually events and 3D immersive experientials, environments that make you feel like you're underwater. They're black light, everything kind of pops, and it's kind of surreal, and it's very, very emotional. And then when you add in the plastic conversation, as well as the conservation conversation, as Andre's drinking out of a plastic bottle rather than a reusable cup. No, it's okay, because it becomes a conscious decision, right? It's something that it's very difficult to be 100% sustainable, but there are choices that we can make on a daily basis to live a more sustainable life. And that's what it's about, is educating people that there are conscious decisions, and by using art to open up their minds, they're open to that, versus just getting hit with a random, ad or a random message that's like, your plastic is awful, or, you're killing sharks and you're doing this. Like, let's take you through an experience, an environment where you see something of beauty and that makes you feel good. And then, hey, like, this has an impact, and let me tell you why, and, consider this in the future. And then by doing this, you can have an impact too, right? And just even using POAPs, where we did a simple thing, and right now, right, it's still going on. Anyone that wants to claim a POAP and learn about seagrass and the carbon recapture and how sharks are the seagrass protector, we literally created the seagrass protector. And if you go to poap.xyz and download POAP and put in your Ethereum wallet or your email, and then go to the mint button in the bottom right, plus, and then type in the secret word conservation, CONSERVATION, no spaces, through tonight or the end of the month, you'll be able to claim your Miripolsky seagrass protector. And we've made a donation of 0.001 ETH for every POAP that we created, regardless of whether or not it's been claimed, to Beneath the Waves already.
Wow, that's
and
amazing.
So that's one way of using POAPs to provide actionable impact, right, through Web3, as well as Storytell, and bring people into the community. And for us, it's more important to put those into people's wallets than it is to sell the NFT right this second. But that's the flip side of the challenge, as being an independent creative that's working for a cause. How do you continue to fund what it is that you're doing? And so
never-ending balance.
That's why we've shifted. And so now we're moving into a combination of like Web2, Web3 hybrid, where, sure, we will sell NFTs, but we're also going to raise funds so that, and bring on some more partners and sponsors to cover that initial cost of awareness, and getting out there, and scaling at NFT NYC, lightning in a bottle, hopefully, fingers crossed, Viva LA Music Festival,
nice.
And some other different events throughout the end of the year.
Well, I like that,
and then use that.
Yeah, I think it goes back to your point about, being more than just a slogan, being more than just trying to do something that's trendy or looks good on paper, and actually having a call to action and showing real change happening, like on the ground in the world. So I think you're on the right track, and not being too concerned about NFT sales, because as we touched on in our last episode where we were talking mental health and wellness in Web3, this FOMO attitude, this, needing to sell out right away, and you wish you got your NFT, that's all just that side noise, that's it's not really the impactful aspect of the community, but unfortunately it's the most loud, and sometimes it's the gambling side, right? So some people want to gamble, I guess. Andre, you were going to add something?
No, but if you could just take 1% of those gamblings, like just how much money is going to get
crazy.
Transferred today, right?
Yeah.
And can't, I guess, out of all of that, and listen, support, big ups to Yuga Labs, big ups to all these ape holders and all that, sure. But where's the 1% of gross transactions from today going to support, right? Saving apes across the world, right? I'm sure there's plenty of apes that are endangered, and maybe there is that piece of it, right? But I think if we start to make the decision to build those mechanics which Web3 allows us to do, then it's going to become much more natural, and people are just going to start doing it, right?
For sure. I did want to just quickly, for the listeners, hit on what you mentioned as far as the POAP. So it's a very popular tool in the Web3 space. It stands for Proof of Attendance Protocol. If you go into your Apple App Store, you can look it up, just POAP, and find the POAP app. And what you can do through that is actually get little certificates, so proof of attendance certificates. And the one that Ravin had just mentioned it was for Earth Day, I believe, but now it's for the whole month, and it's going to be ending after today because it's the end of the month. So if you go into the POAP app and you type in under the secret phrase conservation, you can claim one of their apps, and that has also been donated 0.001 ETH to the Beneath the Waves, I believe it was, or one of the environmental organizations. So kudos to you, Ravin, and definitely everybody check that out. Proof of attendance protocols are very popular in the space. As Ravin mentioned, it offers a lot of versatility and things you can do with your community when you add that kind of collector aspect. I look like Ravin might have froze out on us, but Andre, what are your thoughts on using this POAP and what you guys have been doing so far, just as far as really, to Ravin's point, pushing for real action in the world?
Well, I'm all for real action, man. It's totally for real action. But for me, and as a newbie to this world, I'm really going with my intuition and how does it feel, and how is the flow, the energy force going, and that's all feeling very, very exciting and very comfortable. And but I do realize that a huge amount of getting the word out in this world is about the community, and is about reaching out, and is about talking to people like we're doing right now, and just continuing to do that on this grassroots kind of level. It's fascinating.
I love it. And when you're looking at, having been a person who has a lot of experience in the traditional art world, and you're jumping into this Web3 space, as we just kind of touched on, the FOMO and all of that, kind of the hype, trying to go to the moon and make big financial gains. I guess there's an aspect of that in the traditional art world as well. But how have you navigated the space, and how do you find, basically plugging into Web3 and into the blockchain? How have you found it so far?
Well, it's just that the blockchain and everything is way, way faster. I think it's still the same kind of principle, and people are looking to invest in things, and they've used art for that purpose for obviously a long time. But it's been kind of going at kind of an ice age kind of a level. And getting the technology coming up with the internet and the computer technology, everything is just exacerbated like crazy. So everything is super fast, and I think sometimes things can be too fast before people can even really deal with it, really process it, and I think that can be a danger. And that's a whole other conversation with the internet and the distribution of information, and democratic distribution of information, and whether it's fake information, misinformation, but information, that's a whole. And again, it's all about speed. It's how fast this can be dispersed, and it's it's all global now. That's the thing immediately. So yeah.
Yeah, I hear you. And it is. And I think that's the interesting part about Web3 as well, as far as that the peer-to-peer, being able to support an artist or creator directly financially from anywhere in the world relatively quickly, right? It's a whole new space, and it adds a new dynamic to art collection for sure. And then to your point, yeah, it does move very quickly. But I think you and Ravin are kind of taking the necessary time to actually assess the situation and, take your time to make the right moves, as opposed to trying to rush one perspective. And I like how you got the 3 different angles going, right? So you've had this NFTG mint that's gone on already, and that's on Polygon, and people can collect and support through there. But then you're looking at the watercolor, the water shark collection, and now this kind of phygital angle where you're going to have these pieces like the one you have behind you. So how do you envision that going? Like, you're going to be able to mint on the custom contract. You buy one of one piece, and you're going to get one of those artworks that you're showing behind you, and then you also get the adopted shark information. So how do you see that working?
Sounds like a lot of doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. I assume there's a pretty high price for all that getting.
Oh. Well, like I say, it's been a total pleasure working with Ravin Dave. He's been fantastic, and so he's really the producer director, visionary of the long reach of this project. So I'm basically following his lead, and I'm going with that flow.
The one of one pieces there, like the one you have behind you, are they already basically created? Like, they're kind of ready to go, and you guys are just working on the custom contract part of things?
Yes, I had a body of work of these oil paintings. I had it show because I'm also working on my other main big project at this time is coming up with a brand that I and my co-creator Christian Mittman called Viva LA, to be kind of I love New York for Los Angeles, because LA doesn't have a catchphrase, and so I've been working on that as well. Gosh, I've lost my train of thought. So I've been working on that at the same time, and in dealing with trying to brand Los Angeles. That's when I really went into overdrive on the sharks, these white sharks with the sunglasses, to represent Los Angeles, because I took these sharks and I put them in different like storyboard kind of tableaus with iconic Los Angeles architecture behind them, so that they're actually doing some kind of an action, like driving a pink Cadillac or something down Hollywood Boulevard, or riding a bicycle. The shark has like Mickey Mouse ears, and he's riding a bicycle with a violin case in front of Disney Hall. So they're all they're humorous, and I hope that a lot of my work does relate to humor. I think that's really, really important, and that's why in general, even though I haven't specifically named these sharks, I feel that they have a humorous feel about them. They have a
most definitely. It's a very uplifting, uplifting vibe. Yeah, they just seem really happy.
Exactly.
Some
So
jolly sharks.
Make people crack a smile. I'm happy with that. But
like
dealing with an iconic imagery that is kind of subconsciously or consciously accepted, as a very dangerous kind of fearful creature, and making them more approachable. More approachable.
Yeah, it's a really cool concept. It seems so simple, but nobody else has done it, and you did it 20 years ago, and now it's living on the blockchain, and it'll be immutable forever. So it's a really cool.
Yeah, because of the blockchain again, it's worldwide.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, we're not dealing with brick and mortar, exhibition facilities, and now it's the world through this, through the screen.
Yeah, it's
amazing.
exciting. And, you know, being from California, I think California, of all places, is probably used to having their message kind of reach the world. But that's always through Hollywood and through a kind of pop culture filter, right? Whereas now, we're taking out those middle people and going direct.
No question. And that's why I think the best platform that these sharks have had, and I've had them on billboards, on buses, on murals.
Wow.
But I think the best platform for these sharks is the TV screen.
Beautiful.
You know, it's the screen,
Yeah.
and it's lit up. And I have a big theory about television and the light. I think the light is like, I've always thought that it's hypnotic or something. That light and people looking at this at an object that's glowing, and it's like hypnotizing or something.
Yeah.
And it's just gone from television now to the internet, but it's all still dealing with a lighted screen.
The screens, right?
It's the screen. I think there's something about it, and it makes things everything looks more official, and I don't know, somehow more real, you know, on that screen. And that's where we get into the whole misinformation, you know, thing, and
it's a big problem. It's a big problem, and you know, it's almost like we've evolved to think that way, right? It's like, at some point in the 20th century, we started trusting these screens, and we haven't stopped. We haven't stopped.
Such a point that people can do. You can put out messages on the internet, and what's it called again? Where you can get like lots of people coming together.
Viral message.
Yeah, but they can go demonstrate or something. They all, you know, physically, you know, come together.
Like a flash mob or something. Yeah.
Yeah, like a flash mob, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
I think that's
what's up, Ravin.
That's the beauty. That's the beauty, though, of what, you know, what essentially we're trying to do. You know, and part of it is going to take a minute, right? It takes, because like Web3 made art complicated. Now as an artist, not only are you the artist, but now you have to be your salesperson. Not only are you salesperson, you have to now be able to connect with the technical person. And then you need the promotion and the marketing and all these different things, right? So now it's no longer just enough to be able to paint a picture, right? And then furthermore, what does your picture do? Like, what's the utility? How does it work? Like, so all of these things and these expectations are constantly growing and evolving in the marketplace as new collectors come in. And so I think part of the challenge has been just reacting to managing those, as well as developing and figuring out how does that information flow, what information is immutable, what isn't immutable. Everything needs to be designed and figured out and thought through, and it's difficult to do all of that all at once, as well as, like, you know, continue to make stuff. So what it does do, though, is allow us to you know, confirm whether or not, like, something is real. And so that's what we're just trying to establish. The Miripolsky wallet, you have the SharkTales wallet, you have Beneath the Waves, and then those wallets being connected within either a vault or whatever that flow is, so that people can see that their money, or these are the different parts that are going here. And then it happens automatically, so that we're not having to audit or go back and you know, recut or readjust, unless, you know, I guess someone loses a wallet and they need to update it or something. But, you know, it's figuring out how all of that works.
But ideally that can stay immutable forever, right? Because you never know what secondary is going to happen. You never know what's going to happen in the future.
But even after you deploy on Manifold, right, you have to go into every platform and set the actual royalties, because royalties don't necessarily translate across platform, just because it's in a contract. And so even looks rare, it's like, oh, coming soon, you'll be able to update this, but you can't update this right now. But they have it so that their royalty draws from the contract, so you have to be at the source of your contract, versus OpenSea, where we had to do it down on another collection, because someone went through and picked off a bunch of pictures from the PFP collection, from Andre's website, and some other places, and created a 24 item collection. And so we had to report that to OpenSea to say, this is the proof that that is not real. But now that we deploy a contract that came from a Gnosis wallet, even though Andre's his wallet is in there, it doesn't read through, and so then OpenSea won't allow us to publish anymore because we already asked them to do a takedown.
Snap! It's crazy
So
how
now we have
it's
to
like
get
bureaucracy.
verified. We have to get verified in order to publish through Manifold a Miripolsky. So it's just, there's so many nuances that it's amazing to be running at full speed, but at the same time, like, you know, when you're trying to build something sustainable and long term, these things aren't all figured out
Right.
by any means.
And you keep having to pump the brakes and reevaluate, right?
Yeah, and just figure out, because as soon as you think you have the best system, then, you know, maybe it's not, and maybe I'm missing something. So if there's a dev out there that, you know, believes that they can help solve some of our problems, then by all means, please reach out. Like, I'm I'm not on that side. We're doing the best we can as an artist-driven project. And that's why we're looking to partner with different groups that can bring in these different resources so that we can focus on creating the ideas and delivering the most impact.
Awesome. So on that note, anybody listening can reach out to Ravin Dave on Twitter at Ravin_Dave, or you can just go to SharkTales.art and find all of their social media channels and collections there for SharkTales. Really cool content. When you cut out a little bit there, Dave, we were talking about the one-of-one project, and Andre was saying how he's got these beautiful oil paintings pretty much ready to go. And I was just trying to envision how it's going to look like as far as you know, a lot to offer, right? So you've got the one-of-one oil paintings, you got the one-of-one actual NFT art, right? And then you've got the connection to the actual adopted shark that you own and the data that's connected to that. I assume that adopted shark part and all of the data connected to that would just be kind of an unlockable that you get when you purchase the one-of-one. So I'm just curious if you guys have looked at like how that offer is going to be kind of packaged. Obviously you're working with Manifold to get that on the smart contract, but like in an ideal scenario, what does that look like?
So originally we were working, and we still have to kind of figure this out. So originally we were working with real items. So we do have 5 fidgetals with real items where there's essentially a QR code or a code that's embedded into the painting on the back side. And when you scan that, it brings up the actual NFT of it, right? And the NFT has all of the traits and properties of the painting. And in order to access it, you have to be authorized, and then you authorize the code on your phone to sync it up. And then the NFT gets transferred into your wallet. And around that on their system was a video. So you have your actual smart contract that's on chain, and the token that's on chain, right? But everything else points, your actual content isn't on chain, right? Your image isn't stored on chain. Your videos aren't. So what you can do is there's actually there's immutable and mutable. Right. So the immutable is the on-chain. The mutable is the information that surrounds that. And so an NFT is actually just like a web page on the front end. So how it's displayed, right, would then be displayed on their platform, which is the same way, you know, it could be if you go to OpenSea. I can give you a link so you can see what one looks like on OpenSea. And they've attached videos to it so that there's videos that travel with it that the collector can add to the NFT. And then in the same way that those videos are attached, the shark information would be attached. And the other thing is, I mean, that's where we have to work through with tech, building out the technology to be able to, because you also have to do you have to do a KYC. Right? Because if you're going to come in and buy one of these, and then we're going to have to ship a painting, right? And then what's the cost of shipping the painting, and how do we get your information? So there's there's a bit of that piece too.
Right. So quickly, the
then,
KYC, I just want to clarify, is the know your customer. So it's just saying that you're going to have to share a little bit of personal contact information in order to have that digital or the physical piece mailed to you, right? And so in the Web3 space, some members of the NFT community have some hesitations around, you know, sharing their full identity. So we call it KYC for short, just know your customer. It's what's required in a lot of scenarios in the crypto space, but it's always a little bit of a topic of, you know, hesitation. Sorry. Thanks, Ravin.
Yeah, no. And that's, you know, and I mean, listen, I don't want to get into that, but that's just the future, right? Like everyone that's buying ape land today, right, had to go through KYC, and it was like, oh my god, I'm like that's just regulation. Welcome to it. Like, get over it, pay your taxes. You know, so, but I guess what I didn't realize coming into this was how open everything is, meaning that when we first started working with developers and we just sent a mock-up of I guess what we thought, you know, it should look like, and they literally, like, it wasn't designed, it was just, here's the functional information, and it came back to us looking exactly as we sent it, and we're like, oh shoot, okay, like we have to design this, right? But when you go to different marketplaces, that front end interface is designed for you, right? And so the marketplace reads the contract and displays the information in a UI or a user interface or a GPI, graphical interface, right? That they've designed, right? So the way your NFT looks in Foundation versus LooksRare versus OpenSea versus your website, right, are 4 or 5 different ways of how it looks and interprets the information that's within the smart contract. And so how you end up delivering it, how it gets interpreted, how it gets reacted to, you know, like there's so many different nuances and pieces that got to be figured out, because the thing is, like, okay, sure, I can pull up the NFT on, you know, in my wallet, but does MetaMask allow for the fringe videos to be attached to the NFT? Or should I just have a short link to the physical NFT on the Web3? Like, I can send you a link right now to an NFT that we have attached to the painting, right? And you'll see a bunch of videos and everything, but that's going to be on a website, right?
Right.
And then people are like, well, hold on, how come it doesn't display this way on OpenSea? And how come I can't buy it on OpenSea? Well, because OpenSea doesn't support this type of contract yet with these pieces to it.
And would the pieces
so
just be to
such a beginning phase that I'm like, you know what? While we figure this stuff out and while we raise the funds to, you know, to develop this stuff and bring on the partners, then let's focus and shift on just bringing in and building a community around this so that we can then get some smart people to help us figure out these pieces, because I'm not 100% sure. Like, I can visually see it, but I don't necessarily have the tech resources, and we're not in that place to be able to answer all of those questions yet of how that easily happens. And then you have the people like, well, I don't want the painting. I'd rather pay for the store of value. I love this concept. I want to pay, you know, X amount. And so then we need to have a system for staking the painting. We need to have gallery available for the painting to hang on the wall to tell that story, so that is an entry point for people to come back in, because the collector lives in Japan and doesn't want to pay, you know, $15,000 to have a 5 foot by 4 foot painting.
Yeah, right. That's a really interesting. That's a very interesting opportunity. Yeah, I feel like a gallery.
Do they stake the painting, and is that backed by? Do you stake the painting, back it by Ethereum, and then do they make a reward on it by staking it because it's in a gallery, and then that stake reward goes to support the gallery and some local cause?
Wow, that's really awesome, man. That's a lot of
people are wanting, though.
Yeah, I could see that. I could see that being very lucrative and as an option, especially for international people who don't want to pay to have the piece shipped, to actually put it in a gallery and then be able to get revenue through that, whether it's for the good cause or maybe an NFT holder gets some kind of revenue from having the piece up in the gallery after he or she owns it, you know?
I think another thing we're looking at is like stake or mate, right? And just realizing that there's all these different, sharks that are going to come out over the course, right? And
Mhm.
at the end of the day, like we're not going to differentiate which shark from which shark. If you're a shark holder and you have a shark token, when we are getting ready to launch a Discord, and we'll have just different levels and kind of very like gamification tactics and some strategies deployed to make it fun to collect the sharks. And then, there may be a mating program where, what happens if you have an oil painting shark and one of these other phygital sharks from a different series? What happens if you were to mate those two sharks? Like, what does the art that comes out of it? All the way down to, Andre was just playing with some derivatives. If you go to the SharkTales Art Twitter, you'll see kind of a play on apes and sharks that Andre was playing with yesterday, and we said, well, how do sharks and apes play in this world? And I was just below the fiber one. Oh no, that's yours. Sorry. There it is.
Yeah, I got it. It's cool.
Right. Um, and then also I think reaching out to other artists and seeing to try to do some collaborations and to get the sharks, you know, in with some other artists on our artistic style. And I think, what really makes a difference too is the hand drawn nature where we're living in this, completely digital world.
Hmm.
And I think, it's the provenance and authenticity. So, by taking Andre's art and then like he's been doing this for decades, right?
Exactly.
It's not like he just like woke up and decided to buy an iPad and suddenly starts scratching, some photos and flipping it for ETH. And it's like, yo, I made it. Like, we're all going to make it. Like, not for nothing, but there's levels to this shit. There's levels to life. And I love the openness, right? And the positive, but there's also something to be said about tradition and like, authenticity and actual provenance that happened through like through events with people that have actually accomplished stuff. And I
Yeah.
think sometimes, people reward the wrong thing, right? Because someone made the right decision because they spent $500 and now they're worth 750,000 because of this. And now all of a sudden they're a marketing expert.
Yeah,
I'm like, I'm
exactly.
sorry. No, we spent decades doing this and figuring out and learning this stuff. So like, you know what, like success is a much longer term, I think is a much longer term goal. And that, sure, while the upfront success, like, yeah, it would be great to be sitting on that because then you don't have to worry about this. I mean, I don't know how you do that. That's never been my jam.
Yeah. No, I think
So
that's a real problem you just
build
hit on.
good. Yeah, I mean, I just know how to build good quality, brands, and every brand that I've worked on has become a number one brand in the U.S. Like
That's
between
amazing.
Guinness, Heineken, Dos Equis, like these are massive brands with dope teams that take 5, 10, 20 years to develop.
Yeah, no,
You
I think
know,
you've touched on something that's really important in the NFT space, as far as not necessarily giving many people who come into the space with a huge resume the due that they deserve. And so on that point specifically with Andre, who's got such an amazing career before NFTs and Web3, is this something you've considered, Andre, as far as maybe minting other of your works and being kind of your own one-of-one NFT artist aside from this specific project? Or are you definitely kind of focused on putting all your energy into this project and focusing on that alone for now?
No, absolutely not. I mean, for right now, I really do want to concentrate on this project on the sharks. But no, I have some collections. In fact, I have one of my best collections I still have is my Fear No Art collection.
Right.
Fear No Art: A Crash Course in Reality, which depicts I was nearly killed in a really bad car accident in 1984.
Oh, wow.
And while I was coming back through that whole life experience as an artist, I thought, wow, I'm being given, a life opportunity here. And as an artist, you're supposed to, at least it seems to me, you're supposed to reflect, what's going on in your life and the world around you. So I went through like 7 major operations in 9 months and everything. And so that when I finally, after about, I don't know how many weeks, 2 months, I could get into a wheelchair. I illustrated the whole experience of getting into the accident, of dealing with all the consequences of the accident, and then getting over it, and kind of my Frida Kahlo moment. And I put this all together in an illustrated poetic book. And I think these pictures are very 3D. They're all put together with cardboard and pieces of string and
Oh,
staples and
wow.
paper. Yeah, so they're very 3D, and I think they're perfect for NFTs. And
There
so
you go.
that probably will be there at some
Something
point.
to look forward to. The Fear No Art
Yeah, it is.
collection from Andre Miripolsky. You keep me posted on that, okay?
Well, that's what's so great about, it seems that the NFT thing is so much about collections.
It is, yeah.
And yeah, and I do have some various collections. So we're just beginning.
That's it. I love it. That's exciting, man.
And
That's,
and also the sharks, they only go forward.
hey, there
They
you
never
go.
back up.
That's
And I
it.
don't
Never
think they go straight
backwards.
either.
Forwards
They
only.
just
I like it.
always going
Progress.
forward.
That's
So I
beautiful.
really like that. It's kind of a metaphor for
That is. I like it.
yeah.
We're moving forward here at Web3 Warriors as well. I want to give a quick chance for anybody in the Twitch, if you want to ask any questions, this is your last opportunity. Thank you again for dropping in. Appreciate the follow, Ravin. So we do always close off our episodes with this question, and I just want to run it by you guys, and realizing that we've hit our hour, and I appreciate you being here and sharing this amazing innovative project that you're working on. So generally, we always ask, what do you think, for people that are out there who maybe are hearing the misinformation about Web3 and blockchain, or are just curious but haven't quite taken the leap into the space yet? Well, starting with Andre, what's your advice for people who are curious about joining Web3? What's your advice for them, either artists or creatives, anybody?
Well, to me, it's about being persistent. It's about diving in and one step at a time, and keeping at it, being persistent about it. And hopefully you have some help, as I do with Ravin. But I think that's the most important thing, is to be consistent and persistent.
I love it. Consistent and persistent. And that little bit of help that you just mentioned is so important. And I think that in Web3 especially, don't pay for that help, okay? Just come to Clubhouse, come to Twitter, reach out to us here. We've got the Dream Conduit on Clubhouse. We've got Blockchain Gospel. There's Neighborhood Jewelry. There are all these communities that have basically popped up in Web3 with the sole purpose of helping to grow Web3 and really helping people realize how to make smart moves in the space. And you don't have to pay for that. And there's a lot of people out there charging a lot of money, making it look like you should pay for that. And I'm just going to recommend softly that you instead join our communities, join Clubhouse, join any NFT communities that you can find on Twitter, and just plug in and ask questions. And that'll be a much more cost-effective way to do it. And take your time, to Andre's point, just persistence and consistency, and don't rush yourself, So thank you, Andre. Important point there about the help factor. And Ravin, what's your advice? What do you think?
I mean, it's like anything else. If you want to get healthy, you got to practice being healthy. If you want to, change something about, and get stronger, then you have to practice getting stronger. If you want to be dope at doing something, then you got to do what it is that you want to be dope at. So this whole, transition or change, or whatever you want to call it, revolution, renaissance, evolution, takes practice. It's like the first time that you started using email and you hated it and it was so frustrating. It's like the first time you had a Facebook page or a Twitter page or Instagram, or when Instagram changes the things and you can't figure it out because the app updates, or suddenly, you're so, like, you've been doing this for years. Like, we've been doing the web is like a teenage kid about to turn 21.
No doubt.
And what happens after, from 21 to 35, is Web 3, right? So just think about it in human years, right? Web 1 is up until you realize that you exist. Web 2 is those awkward teen years until you're about to turn 21. Web 3 is now you're out on your own. And what are you going to do? What actions are you going to take? How are you designing stuff? Why are you creating things? And
I just hope that in this next iteration or evolutionary step, we do a little bit better than we did last time around. And by that, I mean a more sustainable approach, a more accessible approach. And we don't have multi-billion-dollar companies that are now publicly traded that were completely created off of exploiting others' talents. And that's how this world has been created since day one. That's how the United States was created. That's how colonialization, that's how slavery. It's all about exploiting each other and our environment and the animals and the planet. And this has to be a point or an opportunity for us to rethink and reimagine and do things differently.
Most
Otherwise,
definitely.
I mean, fuck it, I'm not going to be alive by the time this shit all goes down, right? But I would hope I'm trying to have an impact in for future generations so that they have the opportunity, and they will. Humanity will survive, right? But under what conditions?
That's right.
Will they have blue, green, crystal clear oceans to go swim in? Right? Will they have clean air to breathe? Will they not be breathing constant plastic particles as their bodies are trying to, evolve and deal with plastic now being part of the bloodstream?
Sad possibilities, but definitely, like you say, there's a lot more to look forward to and to build out. And with Web3 and with this potential to not repeat some of those same mistakes from the past, very important. And I really love that analogy about the kid and then the teenager and now the adult. So here we are in Web3 adulthood. So let's build it out together.
Early adult.
early adulthood, very important. Important distinction. So we got lots to learn. All right, I appreciate you, Ravin, Dave, and Andre. Don't see any other questions from the chat. Very awesome conversations. We'll be touching base in the clubhouse, and we'll see you around. And definitely the open invitation for a more deeper dive down the road when you guys have your one of ones minted and your manifold contract all ready to go. So we look forward to hearing more from you guys. And thanks again, Andre and Ravin.
Thank you.
All right, take care, everybody. Until next time.
Cheers.
Yeah, cheers. We'll catch you in the metaverse.
Okay.
Peace out.
Thank you. Okay,
Peace.
bye.
SharkTales, representing the cool side of